folk fans. I am here again. It's been a hot minute, but here I'm back with not one but two heavy metal slash hard rock book reviews. Okay, and two artists from different bands, but that they do have some things in common. I'm talking about the Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead and K.K. Downing from Judas Priest. Okay, so both of these, of course, are English rockers. They started their careers in the late '60s, with early bands, and then really started getting into more formal bands in the '70s, continuing on until the 2010s or so. All right, so like I said, when it comes to rock biographies, sometimes there's a bit of a, you've read one, you've read them all kind of a situation. Here is it kind of no different, working class background, family issues, mostly with the father, okay, in the case of both these guys, and started in a band at a young age, got interested in music, got in it because of either girlfriends or because of friends of theirs. They were in a band, they, an early band, got a record deal, studio album, girls, drugs, and rock and roll, touring, rinse and repeat. That is a lot of what you see in these two books. But let's go into the specifics. First, let's go with Lemmy. Okay. So first, this both of these books are co-written, them and a co-writer. Here, in the case of Lemmy, it's with Janice Garza. Okay, and well, both of them do an excellent job of just putting Lemmy's personality across. Sometimes when you read these books, you get to see like maybe another side to them, um, things that you didn't know from interviews, and but here, and that's not the case. Lemmy is Lemmy. Okay, so it's just like it says on the cover. um, Few could claim with any conviction to have taken more drugs, drunk more bourbon, or entertained more women than Motorhead's lead singer, Lemmy. Okay? In the back cover, the heaviest drinking, most oversexed speed freak in the music business. That's pretty much what he was. The image that we have of Lemmy is pretty much what he was in real life. Okay? And he, of course, was a very hardworking rocker, toured constantly. Motorhead did have some lineup changes, and he mentions them all here in the book. And also the frictions within the band with past members, why they wanted to leave, etc. Though it mostly focuses on himself because Lemmy is Motorhead and Motorhead is Lemmy. He does go into his early days with Hawkwind quite a bit, which was I really appreciated, because not much has been written about that band, Hawkwind, that very early. Well, I believe they're still around. A psychedelic prog type of situation. Not the kind of things that you would associate with Lemmy. But anyway, he goes on to say to mention the formation of Motorhead, getting a record deal, and not just one but several over the years. Now, Motorhead was with several companies over the years, different companies in different countries, United States and England and in Germany as well. In Germany is where he fared a bit better, but he has a lot of gripes with the record companies and how they supported or not Motorhead, because as much as Motorhead is ubiquitous, not only in the heavy metal hard rock world, but also in the rock and roll world. I mean, we see Motorhead t-shirts everywhere, and even Lemmy's image has become iconic. As much as the T-shirt, because it's kind of like the Ramones T-shirt that you see everywhere, or maybe a Rolling Stones T-shirt, the tongue sticking out. So he did contribute to that to rock and roll at least, because even with all of the studio albums that he put out, there's not. They didn't never actually sold a whole lot, with a few exceptions. And he himself even says how a lot of people say that his early stuff and the Motorhead's early stuff, and it seems to be that they haven't listened to anything past 1980, even though many of the Motorhead's later albums were pretty damn good. All right, so Lemmy White Line Fever here, very recommended if you're a fan of rock and roll in general or and Motorhead especially. Okay, very well written. Lemmy's voice comes across. He says drops a lot of f bombs. That's for sure. Okay, very readable. It is in this paperback, or rather a softcover edition. It is 337 pages, but they go by really fast. Very readable, and very recommended. Lemmy White Line Fever. Now let's go with K.K. Downing. I did enjoy this one a bit more than the Lemmy one, but that's just I'm biased because I'm a much more bigger fan of Judas Priest than I am of Motorhead. Okay, so Heavy Duty, Days and Nights and Judas Priest by K.K. Downing, and also like I said, uh, early days similar to what you might think, working class background in England, in Birmingham, where same place where Black Sabbath is from, and wanting to not go into the, wanting to escape the rut of just growing up and then going to work in the factory. So music was an outlet for him, as it was with many other bands. Okay, he started playing guitar, joined the already formed Judas Priest, even though here it says that he formed, and that he's a founding member of Judas Priest, kind of, because a band with the name of Judas Priest already existed, even though they were not a heavy metal band, much less, or even a hard rock band. They were much on the bluesier side. And then he joined the band, and then they kind of morphed into the Judas Priest we know today. Here, pretty much the main reason for KK's writing this book, as it seems, is that uh, he wants to air out his grievances, especially with Glenn Tipton, who he saw as very controlling, and that he uh, describes himself as very easygoing and non-confrontational, and he kind of blames himself, for not standing up more for what he believed in, even though he does say that he did speak up, but the other band members outvoted him, especially Glenn, who had a lot of pull in the band. He says because of the manager. Okay, so so talking about lead solos, who gets what, how many lead solos per album and stuff like that. Which kind of seems a little bit petty, but not to KK. All right, he comes across as very likable. It is also very readable. This, the tone of the narration is a bit more, shall we say, well mannered than Lemmy. Because Lemmy is dropping f bombs all over the place. Some in here as well. But he comes across as a much better behaved. At least in speaking. Even though there are of course the obligatory stories of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, though not as many with the drugs and the drinking, because that's one thing that I did criticize about the Lemmy book, is that the whole thing about the drinking is not really that interesting. I know you did it a lot, but we have to hear it every 2 pages? Not really. Okay, KK does delve more into the music side and telling us the formation and what came about with all the classic albums of Judas Priest that we know of, British Steel, Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith. Okay, and what's surprising also is that the albums that we as fans kind of not think of as highly, or kind of put down in the bottom of the ranking, mainly Ram It Down, Turbo, and especially Nostradamus. Uh, he does like those albums, and especially with Nostradamus, he has it in very high regard. He likens it to the great double studio albums of the '70s. He also says that he feels that album has gotten a bad rap, and that when they released it, that they should have toured with the album and played the entire double disc set in its entirety. I don't know if us fans would have been able to withstand it, but it never happened. They did tour with the album, but only in the normal way, with having a few of the songs intermixed with their greatest hits. All right. But KK says that all albums, and he's right also, that with lengthy albums, you need to, take them in and take them in again and digest them and then leave it aside and come back to it until it really sinks in. And I do agree with that, because I've had that experience a lot with some lengthy albums or some difficult albums, like some of the Dream Theater albums, the Yes albums, other prog rock albums where were at first listen didn't say anything to me, but then later on, kind of you start to pick up on a lot of things. And it's also very important to note that the date of this book, which is, I believe, 2018. Yes, it is. Okay, so that means that when he had already left Judas Priest, he talks about that. In fact, he talked about how he had almost left the Priest back in the 90s. All right, but he held on for a few more years, and he does go into detail about how he left the second time for good, or at least as far as the making of this video. All right, he does go into the Ripper Owens years, and those couple of albums, which I do also believe are kind of underrated. He gives Glenn and those years a chapter. Talks about his relationship with bandmates, especially Rob Halford, which was pretty a good relationship. He doesn't say anything bad about Rob, other than maybe he didn't see eye to eye with him on a few things, as far as what type of music to record at what time, and album titles, album covers, things like that. All right, but he does recognize that the voice of Priest is Rob Halford. All right, so like I said, finished in 2018. So there's no mention of KK's Priest that we know of today, who have already, as of the making of this video, taken out 2 studio albums and has toured quite a bit. So there is mention of when they were nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame but didn't get in. There is no mention of when they actually did get in, which was later than 2018. So just so you know, you're not getting those parts, from 2018 onward, where a lot has happened in KK's life. Okay, but he comes across as a really cool dude, just as Lemmy does, even though he has a bit of harsher words to say about all the record companies deals that he's had over the years. But this one is highly recommended. Here in this soft cover form, it is 277 pages. Like I said, very, very readable. Really enjoyed it. And even though a lot of stories you already know if you're a Judas Priest fans, he does give you quite a bit of other inside information. This, along with Rob Halford's book, Confess, I think if you're a Priest fan, you get those two, you get the whole complete story. All right? So highly recommend both of these books. Lemmy, KK, thank you very much for watching. Keep reading, keep rocking.